Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 2153 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on Nova Tower, roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying 5, runway 28 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure on your flight.
Welcome, everybody, to the Flying Midwest podcast. I am one of your hosts, Andrew, known around here as the Badger Pilot, joined by one of our other co-hosts, Maddie. Hello, Maddie.
Hello, Badger.
And noticeably missing is the lead to our show, usually, Jim. Jim has been under the weather, and the notes say that we're supposed to be kind to him in his hour of suffering and absence, or we can use it as an opportunity to make jokes at his expense because he is not here to defend himself. Which route do we want to take, Maddie?
I think we can do a little of both.
A little of both. We'll make kind jokes. All right.
Well, my goal tonight, because, dear listeners, Jim is also listening, is to make Jim laugh really, really hard, but we can't know because he's not here. So that is my personal goal.
And without getting too much into the details of his absence, if we make him laugh hard enough, it might make him suffer a little bit too.
So mean.
It is so mean. But you know what? I went through it last month. He can go through it this month.
Yeah, I feel like we're just in a constant cycle of making fun of each other because everybody's sick.
Yeah, we're all just giving each other various diseases through the online forum of Riverside.
You know, you can get
Contagious via
diseases
the
from
internet.
drinking from the river, you know?
Yeah,
I guess that's what we're doing. Anyway, it seems like you've been pretty busy with your cute little YouTube channel, huh? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the whole video every 2 weeks going thing, and I've been able to keep that trend so far this year.
Good stuff.
So let's see. I put out my 2024 recap at the beginning of January, and one of the goals I set was to hit 1,000 subscribers, which I was able to hit earlier this week. So that was super exciting. So
Yay!
If you're a listener and thank you. Yeah. So if you are a listener of the Flying Midwest podcast and happen to also be a subscriber to my YouTube channel, thank you so much for joining the team there and being a part of it. And then, last week I put out a video where Ed from the Flying Stampede, friend of the show, he joined me for a Pilots and Paws flight down to Jasper County, Indiana. And we rescued a couple of pups and flew the Chicago skyline at night, which was absolutely beautiful. And I got to use a compassion call sign for the first time too. So that was a lot of fun. And then outside of that, I had my first ever flight review, because usually I just get a new rating and it resets my clock. And I did a flight review with a buddy of mine who's an instructor, and some maneuvers I had not done probably since either, private pilot, or, I hadn't done unusual attitude since my instrument training and all of that. So a lot of stuff I was a bit rusty on, probably did better than I deserved to, but it was a successful BFR, and I'm good for another 2 years.
It's a flight review. It's not a
I'm
BFR
sorry. Yes, it's no
anymore.
longer a buy.
I call it
I'm
BFR
just
all the
gonna
time. It's fine.
get all my, I know. So I said flight review once, and somebody thought I was talking about an IPC, an instrument proficiency check.
They're like not even the
Like,
same
so-
thing.
Yeah, so I just say BFR. It's still a chart supplement, or no, it's still an AFD. It's still
The AFD is in the charts.
It's still-
Oh my God.
it's still the PTS, and hey,
Oh,
I'm
God.
flying with a Loran in my plane, so I can rock it old school.
You
That's
still
fine.
have a Loran? That's hilarious.
I have a Loran. Sometimes it tries to turn itself on.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Got a mind of its own, eh?
I don't know. For those not familiar, a Loran is basically like a precursor to GPS, but instead of triangulating off of satellites, it triangulates off of ground-based stations. That's what it is.
It's super
and
cool.
it hasn't been used. Yeah.
Yeah, I got decommissioned.
But it hasn't been
I think
used since what, like the 90s?
No, it's more recent than that. I think it got officially decommissioned, I think, in 2010.
Well, what about you, Maddie? What have you been up to?
Me, I've been really busy just with work. Nothing special. I'm finally flying again, which is super exciting because it got snowy here in Kansas, and not only snowy, it was also icy, which is super good for airplanes, and also really cold. So it was not hospitable flying for a while, and plus with the holidays and everything winding down, none of my students really wanted to fly or do ground or anything. So I was sitting on my hands for a while until about a week and change ago. And now it's like, I haven't had a day off in like almost 3 weeks. I've been working through my days off to pay them bills. So I've been doing flights and grounds with students, and I've been working at flight safety quite a bit. I had 2 clients today. I'll have 2 more tomorrow, and then I have some next week as well. It's fun. Actually, today was the first time that I had an interpreter with me. Well, I didn't need it. It was my client. He was from Brazil, and he needed just a little bit of extra help. His English was pretty good, but just with some of the more technical concepts, he had an interpreter, which I was not prepared for how much more taxing that would be on the both of us. We were both like in major states of stress because of all the talking and all the trying to communicate across the language barrier. Like, he could understand what I was talking about because he knows the airplane well enough and everything. But like instructions plus, the gal translating, and we're just like, there were a couple times he just took off his glasses and just rubbed his head, and I'm like, dude, same. Like, I'm so overwhelmed. And it's like not even that hard. It's just normal stuff, but it just added a layer of complexity that I wasn't expecting. So I'm tired and I'm very excited to go to bed after this. But first, podcast.
Well, Jim is not actually with us in video or audio, but he is trying to hijack the conversation via our living show notes. And so he's typing in here, speaking of me doing a Pilots in Pause flight, the one and only Brian Turner from Just Played in Silly also did a Pilots in Pause flight. And Jim wants to point out that it was a disappointing missed opportunity for Brian to not use a single pawpaw in there as follow-up from his Pilots and Pawpaws from before. So, Brian, if you're listening, next time you do a Pilots and Paws flight, get a grandpa in there too and make it a Pilots and Paws Pawpaws or Pilots and Papa Paws. I don't know. Something like that. It just occurred to me, this is the first time it's just you and me.
It is. We have tried to avoid, by we I mean Jim has tried to avoid having episodes without himself because I'm such a hot disaster without guidance.
This is going to be the least efficient recording.
Oh my God, yeah.
In the history of our podcast. Jim's typing not guidance, leadership.
Well, it's been lovely catching up. However, we do have just a tiny bit of news and events. Well, actually, no events this time because Jim is dying. So, just news. We just have a couple of things that we would like to chat about from the Midwest region. Badger, would you like to take it away?
We could have an event. I mean, with Jim not being here to stop us, we could throw a big party right now, big after set,
Okay.
Party at the Anoka County Blaine Airport. At Jim's hangar.
Yeah, party at Jim's hangar. Like, can you make it in 30 minutes? I can't, but you could.
No, I probably couldn't. Anyways. All right. Yeah, let's get to the news. Let's move on with this before we get so derailed.
We are already derailed.
Heading out to Omaha, Nebraska, where the University of Nebraska Omaha is launching a study to determine how drones can be integrated with our current air traffic control system. For those not familiar, right now, drones are monitored on what they call a remote ID system. It's kind of similar to ADS-B, for those familiar with that, except it doesn't actually put out an ADS-B signal. You won't see it on your ADS-B and receivers. It really just works on Bluetooth and your phone to be able to see where these are. A few other things that are going on right now are things like low altitude notification technology, which is referred to as LANCE. And personally, I know from experience, if you want to fly in controlled airspace, you have to get a LANCE authorization to launch your drone. And other things like counter drone systems in order to, and I've seen this personally too, you fly a drone, there's an airplane flying over. If the drone recognizes it's a potential conflict, it automatically brings the drone down. So what the study is aiming to do is actually try and figure out how to integrate drones into the ATC system. And it'll be looking for possible knowledge gaps in drone operations with the ATC workforce, try and figure out how air traffic controllers can actually see these units on their scope and some of the challenges of the integration, and then some of the training needs for ATC as well. Obviously, ATC talking to traditional aircraft, airplanes, helicopters, that stuff, they give an instruction to the pilot and the pilot's able to comply, but there's no pilot on a drone. So I think that's probably one of the things, hopefully, they're going to be addressing as far as one of the challenges.
And that's why they're called operators. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
And that's why they're called
Sorry.
operators. Oh, hey, it says drone pilot on my Part 107. Should I really ruffle some feathers and call it a license?
Oh my God. Yeah, let's go all out. Why not? Let's make everybody mad.
It's a small plastic card that's the same size as my driver's license. I'm going to call it a license, and I'm going to call myself a drone pilot. Take that, everybody. Yeah, so anyways, kudos to the University of Nebraska-Omaha for leading the way in what will hopefully help keep the skies safer and prevent future conflicts between drones and manned or womaned aircraft.
Droned. Wait, what? How did you say that?
Manned or womaned?
Woman drone.
Aircraft.
I guess we're all inclusive, aren't we?
Well, like airplanes aren't just manned; they're also womaned. When you are in a plane, the plane is womaned.
You know what? You were so right.
I don't know that I am. It sounded good, didn't it?
It made me feel like acknowledged, so thank you.
There you go.
I'm going to say that next time I'm flying with a student. I know I'm going to get the look. I'm so ready for it. Well, this is good news. Good news from North Dakota. In 2024, aerial applicators, so the people you see in the yellow airplanes going and spraying fields, had set an acreage record while recording 0 fatalities, which is super cool. The reason this is important and very cool is because of how dangerous this job is. So if you have ever seen aerial application before, so think airplanes going and spraying crops or dispersing insecticide or spraying for mosquitoes, whatever, they do not play around. They are doing crazy things with these airplanes. They have incredible loads. They pull lots of G's. They fly really low, a lot around really crazy stuff. And usually there are a certain amount of fatalities each year, which is unfortunate. So in 2024, aerial applicators in North Dakota treated 5.5 million acres, which is a record for them. So pilots that are doing this aerial application are doing a lot more with a lot less these days. They have GPS, they have really capable airplanes. So things like instead of, Super Cubs or whatever, you have Piper Pawnees or even better, Ag Cats. These big turbine-powered airplanes that can take an immense load and can carry a lot of insecticide, fungicide, all those things. And so they've gone from the 1980s, which they had tons, in fact, double the pilots and airplanes that they currently have. And so they're doing a lot more with a lot less, which is, good for numbers, but also the safety is a lot higher because of these new systems that they have and the talent of the pilots and the skill of the pilots. So apparently the previous record that they made was 5.2 million acres in 2015. And the average acreage that they have treated since 2001 has been 4 million acres. So they did a lot of work this year. This is interesting. According to the National Agricultural Aviation Association, which I didn't know existed until just this moment, Aerial applicators nationwide treat approximately 127 million acres of cropland, 5.1 million acres of forest, 7.9 million acres of pasture and rangeland, and 4.8 million acres of public health spraying, including for mosquito abatement, which, coming from Minnesota, super cool. Love mosquito abatement because those are nasty. So yeah, the reliability of the airplanes, the skill of the pilots, everything has increased in the last few decades. So they're able to cover more acres in fewer trips, and that is always helpful. Okay, so apparently also this year, 70,000 acres were treated by drones, which I am looking at a picture of one and it's horrifying. But hey, less risk of people getting sick and stuff from the chemicals that they're spraying, which is good. Apparently, the licensing of drone applicators providing crop treatments has only been going on since 2022, which is only a couple years now. Right now, they have 21 of these licensed operators, and they do say operators in here. Haha, Badger. And it might be up to 40 by the end of the year because they've been getting a lot of interest in it. Now that, it's decently easy to get a drone operator certificate, I wouldn't be surprised if this became more of a thing, especially in those rural areas. So North Dakota's legislature is actually considering a bill which would set up grant programs for the use of autonomous systems, including drones, in multiple areas, including agriculture. So hasn't had a hearing scheduled yet, but that may actually happen. They have a place in the industry, although airplanes are a very special way to get things done. Drones are slow. They're fast-ish, but I don't know if you've ever seen one of those aerial applicators. They are fast. So, yeah, it'll be really interesting. They would probably be really useful for small plots where, firing up an airplane would be, kind of a silly thing to do when, it's usually bigger swaths of land. So, although more acres are getting covered with fewer pilots involved, the community is still looking for younger people interested in this type of flying. So, this is not an easy industry to get into necessarily. Not only do you have to be a technically very skilled pilot with heightened situational awareness and a very keen okayness with power lines, but also you need to have a bit of an ag background. Either, generally this has to do with the chemical mixing and everything and how to fly these planes and things. So you can go to school for it, which is, I think, a bigger barrier, which is why a lot of people aren't getting into it. But it is a very rewarding career. It is very cool. I mean, I've chatted with a couple guys on the radio, ag pilots, and they are super cool people. But you can get involved as a loader, somebody who is, loading these chemicals onto the airplanes. If there's interest in the area, they want you. So if you're interested in agricultural flying, definitely seek out your local spraying company, and they'll probably get you started or tell you where to go.
Or even better, if you're looking to explore a career in there, Jim actually has an episode on Fly the Transition about a second career in going into aerial ag crop dusting and all that. So it was his episode from February 26th of 2024. And the title of that is Fields of Valor to Fields of Green, a Marine Rifleman's Aerial Transition into Ag Crop Duster Pilot. So if you're interested in that, go check that episode out. But since Jim's not here to stop me, I'm going to go ahead and plug another one of his episodes. This one from June 10th of 2024, and the title is Agricultural Innovation: How Drones Fulfilled One Agronomist Aviation Dream. So if you're interested in drone application, go check that episode out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim needs a little bit more credit for his podcast. He does a great job over there.
Yeah.
He also does a great job over here, but he has us interfering. So,
yeah, he does a good job here. You should subscribe to Flying Midwest Podcast. But if not, at least go over to Fly the Transition, and he's got some awesome stories there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I saw one of the concerns that I didn't mention was how drones would act with power lines and things, because
they'd crash into them.
Which
100%.
Is not great. They want to avoid that.
No.
Whereas, humans in a space, humans have situational awareness, where drones have cameras. That can be much harder. Eventually I'm sure these things will improve. but it'll be interesting to see how it improves and what we're gonna get next, because the drones that I see look like big versions of your average everyday drone, just that with little sprayers on them. So we'll see. So Badger, you've been very excited about this episode for a very long time. Is that correct?
That's very, very correct.
Would you be so kind as to introduce the wonderful guest for this episode of the Flying Midwest podcast?
I thought you'd never ask. In fact, I almost interrupted you just now just to get it out. We have, I think the direct quote from the end of the last episode is, we have Paul frickin' Holte is who we have. So Paul has the YouTube channel, My Layover Life. I think he references his airline, but he's a captain for a wide body and flies international. Anyways, let's not even wait any longer to find out where he works for, how he gets the ideas for his videos, some of the awesome adventures he's been on, and a little bit about what is in the future for his channel. Let's get right into it with our interview with Paul Holte from My Layover Life.
Well, welcome, Paul, to the Flying Midwest podcast. You are from the YouTube / TikTok / Instagram of My Layover Life. We're really excited to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's always great to find another fellow Midwesterner to come and chat aviation with, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
To get us started, we're going to run you through our series of Fast 5 questions, which is that quick reaction series of icebreaker questions. So,
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. Favorite airport you have landed at?
Sedona. I flew into Sedona early this year in January, and a friend of mine, Ernie, flying with Big Ern, if you don't know who that is, he took me up in a Cirrus, and we flew up there for breakfast, and that's pretty cool. It's a super beautiful, beautiful airport right on the edge of a cliff, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. As far as like from an airline perspective, probably, I think flying into Washington Reagan, when you fly south down the river visual, the last time I did it, there wasn't like a GPS approach to it, so it was just literally hand flying down the river, trying not to get shot down by the CAA. So.
It's a solid plan not to get shot down. All right, question number 2. Most underrated travel item you can fit in a carry-on bag?
I just posted an Instagram reel about this. Air tags. Like, put an air tag in your bag, and if you ever lose it, then you at least can get close to where it's at.
Why is my bag in Detroit?
Right.
All right. Least favorite plane you've flown?
I'm going to say a Mooney.
The Mooney. All right.
I only because I'm, 6'3" and 250 pounds, and the Mooney M20, the one I've ever sat in, I've really only got like 2 hours in the Mooney, but was it didn't really. The Mooney and I we were on the same size equivalent.
You're like 2 hours. That's enough. We're good.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 4.
I'm sure they're
Sorry,
great
guys.
airplanes though.
Just if you're a little shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Question number 4. Bucket list destination, either for work or personal?
Antarctica, for sure. Yeah, we want to bring our kids to every continent before they graduate from high school.
Okay.
And Antarctica will probably be the most, maybe not the most difficult, but the most expensive, unless somebody wants to sponsor a YouTube video. But that's high in my list. We being United start flying to Greenland this summer, or 2025, and that's a place that was never on my list of places I thought I'd want to go. But if we're gonna have a direct flight from Newark to Greenland, like, why not? So that's pretty cool. I'm excited to hopefully get there this summer.
All right, question number 5. If you could meet anyone in aviation, dead or alive, and have a conversation with them, who would it be?
I think Amelia Earhart would be cool. We named our daughter Amelia, not necessarily after Amelia Earhart, but it certainly played a part in it, I guess. But, I feel like female aviators were not, super common. Even now, they're not super common. I mean, when you look at the percentages of male to female. But back then, it was even less common. So, I don't know, to meet someone with that sort of personality that wants to go explore the world and a male-dominated, not industry, but, area of life. I bet she was pretty neat person.
I bet she was, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir, for playing along with our Fast 5 questions. I think we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of the episode and
Awesome.
get into the interview.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to have my friend Badger here take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Paul, if you could tell us a little bit about your aviation background, how you got into it, and what started it all for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so when I was 13 years old, I was out at the Stanton Airport, which is a small grass strip, maybe 30 miles south of Minneapolis, kind of between Minneapolis and Rochester. And my dad and I were out there hanging out, watching airplanes, gliders, and skydivers, and we started talking to one of the glider tow pilots, and he asked if I wanted to go for an airplane ride, and a couple minutes later, we paid him literally just $5, which I think was $5 beer money for him.
Sure. Yeah, probably.
And yes, he took me up on one of the tows and kind of got hooked. And that summer I went on, I was just out there all the time. I went on airplane rides with that guy, Tom Cornwell. He's an Alaska pilot now. I was getting pretty bad grades in school. And so my dad obviously saw, a passion forming. And he said, all right, well, for every A you get 1 hour flying. And for every B you get a half hour flying. So overnight, I went from C's and D's to A's and B's and started flying. And of course, back then I wasn't flying, 4 times a week or whatever. I was, 14 years old. I was flying twice a month, maybe. And, but enough that I could solo. I soloed just after my 16th birthday and then got my license on my 17th birthday and got my instrument rating at Stanton. I had like 250 hours by the time I graduated from high school. Nice. And then went to St. Cloud State and got my commercial rating my first semester. Yeah, after I got my flight instructor rating, I did a little bit of flight instruction and I flew a Cessna 210 for a company out of Lake Elmo and flew. The best job I got was sitting right seat in a Cessna Citation.
So is it safe to say then that you plan to make this a career pretty early on then, or?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to be an airline pilot. It wasn't until I started flying with that guy Neil in the Citation, and he was able to mentor me and tell me, because he was an airline pilot, now he's a corporate pilot, and I knew I wanted to fly airplanes for a living for sure, but he was able to kind of guide me through that. If you want to do this for 40 years, being able to walk down the jetway, turn left, and have everything done for you is a pretty good way to do it.
Yeah, I bet.
So, so I for sure knew I wanted to be an airline or be a pilot, but really being an airline pilot wasn't something that was like my top priority until I was well into college.
So what was your path? So you talked about the Centurion and flying right seat in the Citation. What was the rest of your path to where you are now?
Yeah, so throughout college, I had multiple flying jobs. I was flying the 210 and the Citation, and the Citation job helped me sit right seat in a King Air for a different company, and I flew skydivers at the same airport where I learned how to fly, which was kind of a full circle.
Yeah, right.
Going from
no kidding.
a 13-year-old kid watching skydivers and thinking that was super rad to 6 years later being back there flying skydivers.
Yeah, right.
And that was really a nice bump in flight time. On the path to 1,500 hours to get hired by an airline, to be able to fly skydivers, it's not super high quality flight time, obviously, but it's a quick way to get 500 hours. I wouldn't have wanted all 1,500 hours to be, fly
Sure.
skydivers, but for a small portion of it, I think it's not a bad thing to have. And then, so once I graduated from college, I was right at 1,500 hours, and I was able to interview. I interviewed with 4 different regional airlines, Mesaba, Pinnacle, Skyway, which was in Milwaukee. It was a Midwest Express commuter, and then Horizon Airlines out in Seattle. And I had job offers from all of them, and I was able to tell all of them, because I was interviewing like my last semester of college, I was able to tell all of them that I couldn't start until, I graduated, and which allowed me to like keep interviewing with different airlines.
Sure. Yeah.
And so Pinnacle was flying, they were starting, this was back in 2001. So they were going to start flying CRJs in Minneapolis, and that seemed like a good deal. And I, because I had some, jet time, Mesaba was going to put me in the Saab 340, and Pinnacle was going to put me in the RJ. And that's literally the only reason I chose to go there. So, so I got hired by Pinnacle in 2001. I ended up getting furloughed right after September 11th. So I came online basically in August.
Oof.
And then so September of 2001 was my first month as like a normal line pilot. And then September 11th happened, literally, like 11 days into being an airline pilot.
Wow.
September 11th happened. And, the next day we had notices that we were getting furloughed. And fortunately, and you don't know this at the time, but fortunately I was only furloughed for a month and a half.
Oh.
And it was a significant point in my career because I remembered it, but it wasn't so significant that, I was without a job for 5 years or
Sure.
whatever. So I was at Pinnacle for 5.5 years. I upgraded to captain there about 2.5 years in. So basically half my time was as a first officer, and then the rest of my time was as a captain on the CRJ. And then I met this guy who worked for Airborne Express, and we became really good friends. And we used to go out to his place in Montana and on the lake and hang out in the summers. And we were friends for, 2 or 3 years. Around then, after we'd been friends for a couple of years, I started asking him, because I knew he worked for Continental Express before. And I was, now I'd had my 1,000 hours of turbine PIC time, and I was ready to move on and getting antsy to go do something else. And so I asked him, I said, hey, do you know anyone at Continental that would maybe help me get hired? Because Continental was hiring a lot back then. It was kind of how United is right now. They're maybe not 70 people a week, but it was 20 people a week, and that was a lot. And so I was able to, so I asked him if he knew anyone who worked for Continental, and he's like, yeah, I might know somebody. So he put me in touch with this guy, Eric, and Eric basically agreed to, this guy, Gary, was going to write a letter of recommendation, and Eric was going to sign it, bring it into the chief pilot office, and I don't know. So me getting hired by Continental was clearly a paperwork error, but so he brought my stuff in, and when I called Eric to just touch base and have a phone call so we at least kind of knew what each other were about, he said, oh yeah, Gary used to be my chief pilot at Continental Express. I was like, oh, I've known Gary for 3 years, and he never once told me that he was the chief pilot at Continental Express.
Surprise.
So, it was a nice reminder that, and I try to tell this story today because it's a nice reminder that you don't want to burn any bridges, and you never really know, like, who's sitting in your jump seat. It could be the chief pilot of your next company.
Sure.
And they're just a normal guy like the rest of us. So anyway, so I got hired by Continental in 2006.
I think a lot of our listeners are probably going to know you from your social media presence on My Layover Life. So talk to us a bit about how you got started with that.
Yeah. So when I was getting senior in the right seat of the 757 and 767, I was starting to go to all these really cool places, like going to Milan and Zurich and Amsterdam and Athens and Rome. And that was starting to become my normal routine. And I was posting a lot about it I've got a private Instagram account too. And I was posting a lot about it on that. So, but my Instagram was turning into a picture from Milan and a picture from Athens and a picture from Rome and a picture from Zurich and then a picture of my family. It was a little heavy-sided towards like cool places I was going.
Yeah.
And so I just decided I'm going to just start a work account covering just what I do on layovers. And that way there's just a separation. That one can be public and I don't have to worry about, anyone seeing my kids on there or whatever. And so I started doing that. And that Instagram account was just to have a different place for layover pictures. And when I started my YouTube channel, which was probably a couple years after I started that Instagram account, I've always enjoyed video editing and being creative and that kind of stuff. So, but when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't really know what the rules were as far as like showing work stuff.
Oh, sure.
So I just made it about layovers, and that's why it was called My Layover Life. So each video was 24 hours in Stockholm, 24 hours in Rome, 24 hours in Lisbon, whatever it was. So there was never really a story of like, well, this is how I got here, and this is why I'm here. I was just magically in all these cities in Europe. And that didn't do very well. My intent with that was if if one of my colleagues has a layover in Lisbon and they're looking for something to do, they can go look at one of my videos, see what I did, and pick one of those things and go do that. But that didn't really take off because nobody was watching my videos. I had less than 1,000 subscribers, and they were mostly my friends. And
the friends and family zone.
That's right. And the videos weren't really getting any traction, and there's way better YouTubers out there than me, still today, obviously, who make really great travel videos about the cities that I was in. So like I wasn't really breaking any ground with my videos. So then I don't really know. Maybe it was because I was now a captain and I could like not that I used that to like feel like I had more authority taking videos at work, but anyway, it just happened to coincide with I upgraded to captain and then started taking videos at work, and I already had a relationship with the United social media team, and they liked what I did and invited me to their social media camps and stuff, and so I had a better understanding of like what was allowed and what's not allowed, and if like if I take a video in the cockpit, I make sure that you can see that the door is open, so it's very clear that we're on the ground. Or even like during COVID, I was, when you had to wear a mask, unless the cockpit door was closed. So then I take a video with the cockpit door closed, but I had my sunglasses on so you could see the reflection of outside and see that we weren't in flight or whatever.
Oh, sure.
Stuff like that. But once I started including kind of behind the scenes work stuff, which for me was not necessarily fun to record because it's just,
it's just work.
It's just work. and there, it takes a certain level of courage to walk through the airport in your uniform or any time and hold a camera up to your face and talk to it. So part of it was just years of, gaining courage and talking to the camera and becoming a better YouTuber, I guess. But once I started including behind the scenes work stuff, that's kind of when I had my first video of behind the scenes as an airline pilot, or 5 days as an airline pilot, whatever it was. that video, took off. It was crazy to see because it was, I was used to seeing, 200 views. Great. Another, another 30 hours of editing for those 200 super fans. And I uploaded that one with the same expectation of it, not getting many views and then it would, 10,000 views, and 20,000 views, and 50,000 views, and 200,000 views, and 1,000,000 views. And then I watched my subscriber count. I mean, overnight, it felt like it went from 1,000 people to 50,000 people. And it was obviously very rewarding, but now I felt like I needed to always do behind the scenes work stuff.
Sure.
So I feel like I'm still trying to figure out, I like making those videos, but the part I like is like what I'm doing on the layover.
Yeah.
Because the in-between stuff is, a lot of it's very similar. It's pretty much the same thing every time. But so one of my goals for 2025 is to kind of come up with ideas for different types of videos or different ways to do it. And it might fail, and that's okay. And I'll go back to 3 days as an airline pilot. One of the coolest stories of like people I've influenced, and I don't really love the term influencer,
but here you are.
But this, but this one guy at work, we were flying together. We're standing in the jetway in Newark, about to start a trip, and usually I can tell if someone follows me on YouTube or Instagram because they're super excited to meet me or whatever. But this guy had said, he's like, your YouTube videos changed my life. I went to JetBlue and I was very happy to work for JetBlue, but I wasn't like passionate about it or whatever. And obviously JetBlue is a great company. But he was like almost on the verge of tears in the jetway, saying, I was just I wanted to work for United, and here I was at JetBlue, and that's great. And here I'm going to work here for the rest of my career, and that'll be great. But he kind of had that, this is a good job, but this is not what I want. And he said it was my videos that kind of gave him that push to move on and try to get hired with United, and he did. And then he was flying with me and like literally on the verge of tears in the jetway, being grateful that I made these videos and gave him the push to go for his dream. And so stuff like that is really fun to hear, and kind of makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, that is really great. And especially
awesome.
It can come full circle like that, where he's made this leap into another company, and now here you are.
Yeah. Telling him that he has to do the walker.
Yeah. Like, I appreciate your kind words. Now get out there, buddy.
You work with the United social media team. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that's like and what kind of opportunities you've gotten while working with them?
My first interaction with the social media team was I posted a photo. It was like this, I took it in Munich, Germany. It was this photo of me holding like a small model airplane. And I was holding it like right in between the buildings. I set my camera down on the ground facing up. So like the photo was like a square of buildings looking up, like a straight looking up shot to the sky. And then my arm holding this plane, but it was like a silhouette. So it looked like a real plane, but I was holding on to it. And I don't know, that was Instagram 5 years ago. me trying to be creative on a layover. But that was the first photo that they reposted. And I was like, oh, I didn't know United knew who I was. Like, I assumed I was just a whatever Instagram account. And then in 2019, in the late fall, I got a message from some random person on Instagram, and she said, hey, I work for the social media team. We sent you an email. Just go look at it. And that was back, like, I literally never looked at my company email. I look at it more now. But it's a good thing she sent me a message because, like, I would have never seen the message. And it was
We've been trying to reach you about your extended course.
Yeah, exactly. So it was an invitation to the very first United social media camp. And there was like 20 of us that flew out to San Francisco, and we got to go out on the basketball court. And there's a bunch of external, or not a bunch, but a couple of external influencers that came in and just spoke to us about how, what's trending on Instagram and what's trending on TikTok. And here's some tips and tricks on taking better photos. And then, some people from United spoke, and the director of marketing and stuff was there. So it was very cool to be invited to that sort of thing, because there was only 20 people invited.
Yeah.
And then, so that camp has continued on every year. And of course, during COVID, it was kind of a, online only type deal. But, last year's camp was in Chicago, and there was like 130 people there. And, consists of, flight attendants, pilots, ramp agents, gate agents, IT people that are all have a presence on social media. And so it's really cool to be a part of that. But the coolest thing I've been able to do was just a couple months ago. I was invited to film a commercial, like a TV production commercial for United. And it was legit, like out in LA, and with like a real Hollywood. I mean, it was at a hangar because we were using an airplane, but like real actors, like SAG actors, and a real production company, and like the guy with the little flapper thing. And that's like something you dream of,
Yeah.
And I never once thought I would get to be part of that. And like there's 2 commercials out now that I'm in, and they're literally less than 1 second shots that I'm in, but it is cool. And it's also very impressive how many people noticed. Like the first night it was going to be out, it played during an NFL game. And I knew about when it was going to air, and I knew it was going to air that night. So we had a watch party at my house with just my kids and my wife. And, but nobody else, I didn't tell anyone it was going to air because I couldn't really say anything about it.
Sure.
And so I didn't tell anyone about it. And literally within 5 minutes of it airing, my phone was maybe not blowing up, but I got 10 messages. It's like, that's impressive that anyone is watching commercials, and B, would notice me in the 1/2 second that I was in the commercial.
Yeah.
And then text me about it. So yeah, that was literally a career highlight, to be part of a production like that and represent the company. And
yeah.
And that was pretty neat.
It's funny you say that, because I was watching that game, and I don't know why I was watching the commercials either, but I was. and I saw your face for a brief second, and I yell at my wife, "Rewind it. I think I know that guy." And sure enough, there you were. And I was one of the guys that sent you a message on Instagram saying, "Look, it's like how would I think that you wouldn't know you were going to, of course you knew you were going to be on there." But yeah, it was pretty cool to see.
I did get a few messages. Did you know you were on it? Yeah.
I mean, maybe they were
12 hours. We spent 12 hours on a set recording that. Yeah, I was very aware of it.
Yeah. All right, so let's transition a little bit to talk about some of the content of your videos, because you said you like showing what you're doing on your layover, but for people that aren't familiar, it's not like you're just saying, this is the hotel I'm sleeping at, this is the restaurant I'm eating at. You go on some pretty incredible adventures. Like you've had, what was it, Vietnamese coffee with a train inches from your face, and snorkeling in between faults, in between continents, like really cool stuff like that. Is there anything that you've gotten yourself into that you've legitimately been frightened, like, oh, maybe I went a little too far on this one?
I'm working on a video now that could potentially be life-threatening.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it a surprise, though.
That's fair.
Well, you're still alive, so your life was threatened, but you lived, so that's good.
Yeah.
But did you die?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to go home at the end of the day. So I try to mitigate the risks. And I feel like one of the ways I do that is by looking at how many other people are doing this. Like I went swimming with sharks in Hawaii once, and that wasn't a YouTube video. That was before I had a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. But I just did it because I wanted to do it. And, the way I, told my wife about it, I was like, they go out 3 times a day with 6 tourists on every boat.
Yeah.
And if people were getting eaten by sharks, they wouldn't be doing this every single day.
Yeah.
They clearly know what they're doing. And so that's kind of how I try to justify it. One of my videos this summer, I jumped off a cliff in Switzerland, it's like a canyon swing. So you jump off the cliff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And it's 90 meters. So it's like 300 feet above the canyon floor. And the first 50 meters, so 150 feet of the fall, is like free fall. And the guy, my wife was not thrilled about this. But again, there were 7 people in our group that did that, and they do it every half an hour. It's not, clearly it's pretty safe.
Safe enough.
Yeah. The guy who was kind of the guide, or who was hooking us into the harness and stuff, he said, when you jump off, even though it's safe, you're just going to swing and it'll be fine, your brain thinks you're about to die. And I was like, that's awesome. Let's see how I react to that. So
how do you find these places? Do you look on TripAdvisor, or?
Most of the ways I find it is through Instagram, and I'll search the city, or I'll see stuff on YouTube. A lot of times I'll look up certain specific content creators, going to Iceland. I know there's 2 or 3 people I follow who have tour guides, and they've got a litany of things that you could do in Iceland that are way off the beaten path. Otherwise, there's a website I use called Atlas Obscura, which is pretty wild. It's crypts and weird, almost every city there's an opportunity to see bones somewhere. It's
I guess.
Oh, that kind of
tourism
crypts, not the gang. Got it.
Right. Yeah. They have some pretty wild stuff. A lot of people are doing the canyon swing in Switzerland and swimming with sharks in Hawaii. So it's not like I'm doing crazy stuff, but I am doing stuff that most people don't do on a 24-hour layover in Geneva. Because it takes 3 hours to drive there, and so you're skipping a night's sleep and coming back completely exhausted, and so there's a reason most other crew members aren't doing it, is because it's tiring and involves some forethought.
Yeah.
Most cities, if you named a city, I would have an idea of what I want to do.
So then when you get to one of these adventures that you have planned, how do you figure out how you're going to film it? Do you hand a camera to one of your crew members and say, go nuts? Do you try and set up a shot beforehand? Because obviously, swinging off of a cliff or something like that, you only get one shot.
Right. Yeah.
How do you go about that?
There was a point making YouTube videos that I learned that voiceovers are critical to telling the story, because you can't, I can't anyway, tell the whole story talking to camera while it's happening, because I don't really even know exactly what's going to happen next necessarily. But as far as setting up shots, I try to get enough B-roll that I can show what we're doing, and then if I can get a crew member or a stranger to help just get a shot of me walking up to the thing, or or whatever. Specifically about the canyon swing in Grindelwald, where you only have one shot. I had researched that swing ahead of time and saw that they allowed you to bring your own camera as long as it was strapped to your wrist. So I have an Insta360. I've got a pole mount with a perfect wrist strap, and I didn't think it was going to be an issue. And then when I walked up, they were like, "Yeah, we don't allow anyone to use their own cameras anymore. That just changed last month, so the website hasn't updated or whatever." And I was like, the whole point of this video, it was like for like nervous flyers, and the whole point of it was for me to do something scary to like show that you could do scary things and be okay. And you know, like I had part of my crew was going to be at the bottom of the canyon with my camera taking video of it. And then I purchased the video that they sell. And I was not, which is fine, but I was not happy with it because it's like it's edited for a reel, so it's 9x16. I want 16x9. And it's like they've got their own music, and you can't hear me screaming in it or whatever. And you don't see me pausing at the top for 20 seconds while I think about what I'm about to do. And like all that stuff that would have been a good build-up for a video, I didn't have. And the way I kind of compensated for that is that I had a drone shot, like approaching the kind of like coming up over the top of the canyon swing.
Okay.
And I just added like a voiceover and like a heartbeat and like flashed the video as it like approached the canyon swing to build tension and like show that you're about to do something scary. Because then the videos that I had from them were kind of crappy, but they were like really fast. So like it was like only the swing, which, you know, took 40 seconds or whatever. So that was super, super frustrating.
And then some of your more, I guess, for lack of a better term, scripted shots, like when you're making PA announcements and like, is the side tone through the cockpit like that? Do you have a recorder in the cabin or passengers back there? And then like crew room shots. You ever have another crew member that just walks in the room like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, how does some of that stuff go with the B-roll?
The crew room shots are probably the hardest shots to get because some people know that I do this, but some people don't. And if you set up a camera in the crew room, like someone's going to lose their mind. And yeah, I try to do those when there's not too many other people around. And a lot of times I'll use my phone because it's a little bit more inconspicuous than my camera with a big giant microphone on top of it. Stuff in the airport, I mean, I feel like I can set my camera up on a garbage can or whatever and walk by it real quick, and somebody might notice that, but most people are too busy with their own life that they're not paying attention to you setting up a camera and walking back and forth in front of it once or twice. And yeah, for the cockpit, like when I'm making a PA, I have a plug that I can plug my headset into that goes directly into the airplane.
Okay.
So it's connected directly to my camera.
And on your trips, are you bringing like a plethora of cameras and recording equipment, or is it fairly minimal? Or
the main camera I use is a Sony ZV-1 Mark II, which is a super small point and shoot camera. I have a small tripod on it or handle thing, and I've got a Rode mic on, like a shotgun mic on top. So that's my main camera. Otherwise I have a GoPro and it's a 360, a drone that it's sitting in pieces on the kitchen counter right now. Yeah, so those are the main, and then my phone. I use my phone quite a bit for, like boarding the plane if you're trying to get a shot of you walking on or whatever, like stuff like that's hard to have a big camera out.
Yeah, I bet. For
a 20-minute video, how much time do you spend actually filming, and then how much time do you spend sitting at a computer and editing?
Yeah, it comes out to about 1 hour for every minute of finished video. So our Australia video, that took me a long time to edit. I think it's over a 30-minute video. My family and I went to Australia. I probably spent 50 hours editing that video. But the actual filming of it, I mean, it happens, while we're on a trip. The only bonus type stuff I'll get, like tonight when I crashed my drone, I was trying to get a shot of me driving through the neighborhood because the next video I post is going to end in our house. And I wanted a video driving past Christmas lights. So I went and found some cool Christmas lights, not on our street because I didn't really want our street in.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But yeah, it was really dumb. I was sitting in my car. I launched the drone from the roof, and I was just like, I'll just go straight up. That'd be fine. And there was trees straight up. And yeah, it was not ideal.
It's better than what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say you were driving with your knees while controlling the drone with your hands.
That's what I was about to do.
See, I thought this was going to go, you're trying to, the video is going to end in your house, which is also where the drone ended.
Yeah,
crashing in your house or something.
Drone ended. Yeah. I've got some B-roll of airplanes pushing back, and I try to match the current, like the weather conditions and stuff for the video. So sometimes it takes me a week till I get back to Newark and get video of a 7.6 parking somewhere or whatever. But the filming part of it basically takes place while the trip is happening.
Sure. And that's a fairly common number that I've heard as I've talked to other YouTubers, that it's about, for every minute, it's at least an hour of editing.
Yeah, for sure. Which is sometimes frustrating because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it too. I have just as much fun editing as I do filming and coming up with scripts and video ideas.
I think there's something about that creative process that is really cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things I really like about your videos is that it always includes other people that are important to you, whether it's your family or friends that you're visiting or even just the crew. But your family especially, you get participation with them in the videos. I know my wife has no desire to be in any of my videos at all, but how was it? Was your wife receptive to that? Was she supportive of it? Was she hesitant? Like I see her in the bloopers and she's like, this is dumb, but
yeah. She doesn't love it. As a matter of fact, tonight, like I say filming, we're just watching a movie, but we were filming, like I was walking from the kitchen into the living room and giving my son hot chocolate, and my wife was getting ready to leave to go somewhere, and just she gets very nervous around the camera and starts acting completely differently than she normally would. And it is not until we're doing something that's, like in Australia, we were feeding the birds at this wildlife sanctuary, and there's birds flying all over the place and landing on our heads. Then you're getting a real reaction from her. Like she forgets that she's on camera. But if it's like a scripted, all right, you're going to kiss me goodbye in the car and I'm going to go to work or whatever, like she can't handle that. Yeah. She doesn't handle like scripted scenes very well.
I'd be like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
Mine has said that to the camera before. So
yeah.
How come that doesn't make your channel? See, I would watch that.
So yeah, my kids, they don't always love being in the videos, but I do love having, at the end of the day, like especially like our Australia video or the Vietnam video, like where it was like a family trip. I don't know, to have those videos is like super special to me. It's like a photo album,
For sure. Yeah. Makes total sense. Do you have any content that like you see as like a personal highlight for you? Like that's like really stands out as like one that you're really proud of or made some really significant memories?
Yeah. Not content that I'm like super proud of, like the quality of the editing or whatever. But when I flew my parents to Hawaii, that was a couple years ago. It was kind of right as COVID was ending. But it was April, and my mom asked me what I wanted for my birthday, which is in April. And in May, I had 3 long Lahui layovers. And I said, yeah, I'd just love for you to like come on one of my flights to Lihue. And if you want to stay for the 30-hour layover and then fly back, like you could do that, or you can make it a whole vacation or whatever. And so the plan was that they were going to fly out to Hawaii on my trip, and then the next week they'd fly back also on my trip. So we flew out there, and I made a video about it and like what we did when we were in Hawaii. And that was super special because I made like a special PA. This is before I had the cable that I connect to the headset. So it was like I think it was just my phone like sitting next to the speaker in the cockpit. So the audio is not very good, but I made a special PA like thanking them for supporting me. And I had it all scripted out, and I even said like I wouldn't be sitting up here without them sitting behind me, like stuff like that. So that's probably one of my favorite videos, even though it's not the best quality video. It's one of the best memories I have, and that's the only time I've ever flown my family. And then the next trip when they were supposed to fly home, when they did fly home, I got bought off that trip for training, and so I ended up not flying them back. But to be able to fly them there was super special.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you've been a long haul pilot for about 15 years now. So at this point, you probably have an opinion. What are your favorite and least favorite aspects of the long haul airline pilot lifestyle?
As much as it sounds, it can be very tiring. That's probably the hardest part, is that your whole 3-day trip is a series of small naps, like, especially as a commuter, I take a nap on the flight from Minneapolis to Newark. Then I take a nap when I get to Newark, and then I take a nap on the plane from Newark to wherever we're going in Europe. And then I take a nap when I get to the hotel, and then, I sleep longer that night, and then flying back to Newark, I get a nap on that plane. And then on my commute home, I get a nap on that plane. And it's literally 3 days of naps with a one long sleep in the middle. So that is probably one of the downfalls. Surprisingly, the flights go by really, really fast. And when you look at, like, say a flight from Denver to Hawaii, 7.5 hours, there's only 2 pilots on that flight. And so, or even if you were doing Denver to San Francisco to Hawaii, 2 pilots, but 2 landings. A, it's a little bit more work, but B, you're with the same person the whole day, same other pilot. And not that that's bad, but there is something really nice about taking off and talking to one first officer and then going back and having a nap and then coming back and talking to a completely new first officer. It's like 3 different segments in even on a 10-hour flight, it breaks it up quite a bit. Whereas if you were on a 7.5-hour flight with the same guy, you run out of stuff to talk about eventually. And so I don't know, the flights go by really, really fast. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize about international flying, is that the flights are long, but they're kind of broken up into different little segments.
So do you have any content ideas or anything really cool kind of about 2025, or do you not want to spoil anything?
I mean, I do. I am working on this video that's going to be life-threatening. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm working with a United test pilot for that video.
Ooh.
So that's kind of exciting, but I'm going to keep that a little under wraps. I would like to do some interviews. I've been in touch with, just very briefly, with this lady, Kate McHugh. She's Captain Kate McHugh. She's a cruise ship captain.
I'm familiar with her.
Yeah. So we follow each other. We've chatted just, minimally on Instagram, but I'm able to chat with her a little bit. So I think it'd be fun to do an interview, like what's the difference between an airline pilot and a cruise ship?
Oh, for sure.
Or an airline captain and a cruise ship captain. I I don't know. I'd like to do some more, maybe like interview type, comedians in cars getting coffee style, just conversations or whatever.
Crew room coffee.
Crew room coffee, yeah. So yeah, but I mean, my video ideas kind of, a lot of them just come as I go, and
yeah,
they kind of come together in the edit.
That can happen.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to cover or talk about that we haven't asked you that you want to talk about before we get to our last question?
I don't think so.
Okay.
This has been great.
This is super fun.
Oh,
It's a
you
great
haven't
time.
even experienced the last and best part of this podcast.
All right.
Aside
Right,
from the
Maddie.
bloopers, that is
Yeah.
the part, but you won't experience that till later. But for this evening, Paul, please tell us, what is your aviation unpopular opinion or hot take?
Okay.
And it can be about drones if you want.
It could be about
Totally.
drones.
My unpopular opinion is that I don't like it when people use the term jet.
Really?
Interesting. Ooh, tell
I don't
us
know
more.
why. It's mostly military people that use that term. I don't know why that drives me crazy, but like, it's just an airplane. It doesn't, no one's going to be impressed that it's a jet or a turboprop or a piston engine. Just say airplane or aircraft or whatever.
Just like, hey, what kind of jet do you fly? Is that kind of thing? Or
Yeah. Or like, I have the jet. You have the jet.
Oh.
Like when you're transferring controls.
yeah, not just my
That-
airplane. You're
Drives me crazy.
that is
I mean,
fantastic.
I've literally never said that anywhere public before, and I wouldn't say it that in the cockpit. I did ask someone in the military once. I said, "Why do you always call it a jet?" And he's like, "I don't know. I guess that's just what we." It's like It's just like how you grew up. Like they're a product of their environment, and that's it doesn't matter. But I said, so if you were flying whatever a turboprop trainer is in the military.
The Texan.
Yeah, right. If you were flying one of those, would you say you have the jet? He's like, yeah, probably. It's like, all right, no, now that doesn't make any sense.
There's no sense. Yeah. It's the military. It doesn't have to make sense.
That's right.
Whatever it
So,
takes for them to feel cool, I guess. Sorry, that was kind of
Yeah.
mean, but sometimes
I would ask.
that's okay.
Oh, that's great.
I feel like I should add on strange musings that you never say out loud because you feel weird saying it, but it really bothers you. We have some of those.
Right.
This one's
Yeah.
good. I like these ones. Your jet.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah,
that.
that's. I might start using that now while I'm with my instructor. Your jet.
Yeah. Yeah. you have the jet.
Oh, sir, this is a sundowner. This is not going to be what you think it's going to be. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of this.
Yeah. Well, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
As you may have picked up, Badger and I follow you, so we kind of had our nerd out moments. And yeah, you may not have realized you were teaching him a YouTube masterclass, but that's, I think, what it turned into.
Okay. Yeah, I just like to encourage people, and
All right. Well, thank you again, Paul, for coming and joining us on this episode of the Flying Midwest podcast. For those people that are interested in checking out your content, where can they find you?
yeah. So every platform is My Layover Life: Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and it's all My Layover Life.
That's easy.
Well, thank you so much again, Paul, and we look forward to watching more of your content.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much to Paul Holte for taking some time out of his busy schedule and joining us here on the Flying Midwest podcast. I know I personally could have kept talking forever, nerding out about some of the editing process and the YouTube experience and all of that. But of course, like all good things, they must eventually come to an end. But thank you so much to Paul.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Although I am a new viewer, I am a viewer. I do frequent the YouTubes, and he is on the YouTubes. I got to enjoy a lot of his content before the episode recording, and it's so cool what he does. I think his energy and his passion for going and finding all the cool little things out there is just so infectious. It's so cool. It makes me want to be an airline pilot and go and do things.
I will say this too. My wife does not frequent the YouTubes. However, she does every now and then see his shorts pop up on her Facebook feed, and actually one of the few things she watches. So,
How cute.
so he's getting viewers where views are normally not to be had, and well deserved because his content is awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Maddie, what do we have in store for next time?
So on our next episode, we will have a friend of mine, Nick Stoley, who is part of the Commemorative Air Force and does a lot of other cool flying things. It is actually our last Oshkosh interview. I know, almost February of 2025, and we're finally getting done with our last of our Osh interviews.
Right.
But he is our last one. We had actually, we thought we had missing audio files, and they were recovered like magic, right?
Woo.
The day we were going to re-record with Mr. Stoley. So I'm very excited to have him on, even though we already had the interview quite a while ago. But the episode was really, really fun. We got to talk about Miss Mitchell, which is the B-25 that he flies, and all the other stuff that he flies.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear about the restoration of the Miss Mitchell, and you could almost draw a parallel about how we restored the audio files to hear about the restoration.
Wow. What a parallel, Badger. Nice
What
one.
a parallel. All right, with that terrible pun, if anybody's still listening now, they're on their way out, so we should probably close this out.
Solo episodes are coming back in February and beyond. So if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, please let us know what you would like to hear. We have some ideas lined up, but we're also really interested to hear what you guys have to think. So reach out to us on flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com or any of our social medias with your suggestions.
And then when you offer suggestions for the shows, you can actually watch us recording live. Some of our live recordings, and especially our solo shows, we're starting to live stream out into the YouTubes, and the best way to get that, actually the only ways to get that, is either by joining our Discord or by becoming a patron on Patreon. There's lots of different tiers that you can support us on financially, or if you want to just take the free route, send an email to flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com and get an invite link to join our Discord community. That's more than just watching live streams of our beautiful faces. While we're talking, we talk about Midwest destinations, spur-of-the-moment meetups, complaining about cold weather, snow. Today I saw Stankinator was complaining about the winds today and canceled the lesson. So it's all Midwest regional aviation fun and chat.
Hey, y'all
What's up?
should like, subscribe, and absolutely leave a comment. We do read the comments. We read the reviews on this podcast. So if you are nice-ish, aka you leave us 5 stars, I don't care what you say otherwise, we will read out your comment as long as it is rated PG-ish on our next episode. So make sure if you like what we do or don't like what we do, leave us 5 stars and tell us your thoughts in a review.
You know, Jim's not here. We could tell people to leave a review with how much they loved this episode with just the banter of you and me. And Jim's not here to stop it. Yeah.
Jim does have the editing power. However, he's going to have to
that's
slog
true.
through
Okay.
all this other stuff. So maybe we'll be able to sync that in.
All right. Well, then go in the reviews, people, and talk about how much you miss Jim so that he comes back and he can feel, well, he is important, but he can feel that much more important. Let's face it, this podcast would not happen without him.
Yeah, literally not. I couldn't edit
Yeah.
anything to save my life. We would simply die.
And
Sorry.
yeah, we would. Yep. Well, the podcast, not us.
The podcast would die. Yeah, I don't think I would. But
This is what happens. He's not here to keep us on track.
we were doing such a poor
I'm
job.
supposed to be talking about merch right now.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Yeah, we have merch. Not only do we have cool Flying Midwest podcast merch, but we also have Badger Pilot merch. And it says here, new merch is coming soon. I haven't seen a design for that, so if you want to design something, let us know and email us your Flying Midwest podcast designs. Maybe it'll end up on a shirt. Who knows? But with winter hopefully leaving soon, you need to gear up on your summer weather clothes. We have t-shirts, we have hats to keep you from getting sunburned, all sorts of good stuff in the store just by going to flyingmidwest.com/merch. Get yours today before the new stuff comes out and the current stuff is gone forever.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to our silliness.
And until next time,
See ya!
Flight 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35 today.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.
Can somebody play clown music? Because this is just silly. Thank you. There we go. I don't think this is better. Whatever. Okay. I'm a nightmare in my day jobs. I'll be a nightmare here too.
yes, as will I. What a quote. It's one thing to train people, but it's even nicer to see people get a job.
My boss.
Get a job.
Yeah. Be kind to me in my hour of suffering. We'll see about that.
Oh, no.
My brain is melting out my ears. Off and on, don't count on much for me. Well, you know what, Jem? We are going to count on you. Because we believe in you.
I'm not. He kicked himself out of this conversation when he got sick.
Oh.
Maddie, are you next?
Yes, but this... you kind of hit me with a weird question. Yeah.
I love it.
I'm also what the French call l'incompetent. So,
Maddie, for a long time, was terrified to tell her students that she had a podcast.
I just didn't. I thought it was
Yeah.
unprofessional. And then I realized, well,
That's what a company is.
they have me as an instructor. I'm just that way. So,
I always think it's funny when I fly with someone who follows my YouTube channel or Instagram account, but then doesn't say anything for like 4 days. It's like, and like I'm taking like selfies in the cockpit or wondering like, do they wonder what I'm doing or like, and then finally like towards the end I'll be like, so I've got this like Instagram thing and whatever. They're like, oh no, I've been following you for 4 years. I'm like, okay, you could lead with that. Like,
I'm a Part 107 drone. I'm going to say it. Pilot. How do I not know what UAS stands for? I know you're choking me through the screen right now.
UAS. I don't even know what UAS stands for. I'll be honest with you. They had tons, in fact, double the pilots and airplanes that they currently have in 2024 and 2020. Let's try that again. My brain is melting out my ears.